Hello Year 13, hope everyone's well. Mr. Azapadi here with another video about Buddhism, Engaged Buddhism. So this is our third one on Engaged Buddhism. This is about the environment. So we've done about generally questions about Engaged Buddhism where we've looked at some Engaged Buddhist organisations, but we're going to look particularly at two issues within Engaged Buddhism, and that is the environment and then war. So the question is, how environmentally friendly is Buddhism? If you put that title in, there's a couple of slides of notes taking, and then there's a kind of another bit of note taking activity, but done in a slightly different way that we're going to do. So while you put your title in, you might notice, look, there are some monks there wrapping a monk's robe around a tree. That is actually them ordaining a tree, making a tree a member of the Sangha. Now you might think that's strange, and probably it is quite strange, certainly not a typical thing in Buddhism, but it was done in order to try and protect trees and try to protect places where deforestation was happening, to stop it from happening. So example of monks, a way in which people have tried to protect the environment in Buddhism. Okay, let's move on. So you need to write down these two definitions first of all, because in order to explore environmental ethics, we need to understand the difference between these two things, deep ecology and shallow ecology. So you can be interested in the environment, protecting the environment, for two different reasons, really. Deep ecology is the idea that the world is of inherent value. That means that we should value and protect the natural world, even if it brings no benefits for human beings. So I know the classic thing might be, maybe there's some kind of worm in the Amazon rainforest that humans have never seen, doesn't benefit us in any way, have no interaction with. But a deep ecologist would say, well, look, it doesn't matter if it means nothing to humans. We should protect the existence of that worm and the habitat of that worm. The environment has some value in its own right, separate from what it does, the role it plays for human beings. Shallow ecology is the idea that the natural world is of instrumental value. In other words, it's only of value to the degree in which it benefits human beings. So from that point of view, yes, it's worth protecting the environment, but only because the environment is where we live. And, if we don't protect it, then we'll be in trouble ourselves. So, for example, global warming, you might, from a deep ecology point of view, you might be against global warming just because it's harming the environment. From a shallow ecology point of view, you might be interested in global warming or stopping global warming because it's going to result in difficult situations around the world for lots of different people. It's going to mean that there's flooding and places go underwater and people can't live there. It's going to result in dry, hot weather, which means that it might end up in famine with people not being able to grow food and so on and so on. So even though one's called shallow and one's called deep, I'm not trying to put a judgment on one or the other, or using these terms isn't trying to put a judgment on one or the other. It's just trying to say that there are these two approaches. Some people would say, yes, the environment is very important just for itself. Other people would agree that it's important to look after the environment, but would say it's only really important because we need to protect the environment so we can live here. So make sure you've got those two definitions. Okay, this is our next slide, and it's just to say a little bit about Buddhism and animals, because most of the time we're going to look at the natural world. Most of our evidence is going to look at the natural world, not really looking at animals, looking at the non-animal environment, whatever you'd call it. But I just want to say something about animals, so you need to make notes on this slide. So Buddhism places a high value on sentient life. That means life that has senses. So that would include animals and humans. So this means animals are valued in Buddhism. The strong separation between humans and animals in Christianity is not present in Buddhism. In Christianity, you've got the idea that humans were created in the image of God and animals weren't, so they're kind of separate. But in Buddhism, the idea of rebirth means that there's no complete divide between different kinds of animals. We could all have been animals in our previous lives. We might be animals in our next birth. Although that does not mean that all animals are equally valuable. Buddhism does say that human beings are more valuable than other kinds of animals, but still, it's not a complete divide. It's not like we're completely separate from animals. So this means, what does it mean for protecting the environment? Well, obviously it means that Buddhism values animals in themselves. So in terms of deep ecology, Buddhism would care about the protection of animals in themselves. It also means that the idea of shallow ecology has a broader meaning. The natural world is of instrumental value to any form of sentient life. So in other words, if animals matter ethically, then not only is it important to protect animals, but it's also important to protect other parts of the natural world in which animals live. So we could say, like, well, maybe there'll be a part of the environment that doesn't matter to humans, but it might matter to some kind of other kind of animals. They would care about it. So that's one idea that you could use within there, the idea that sentient life matters to Buddhists. Okay, the next task we're going to do is I'm going to give you a series of pieces of information. I think it's 8 pieces of information, and I want you to make notes. Take from that information, see if you can make notes in these 4 categories. So you might have 4 different pieces of paper to make notes on, or divide an A3 piece of paper in 4, or whatever it is. So the first question is, how have Buddhists worked to protect the environment? So give examples of how Buddhists have protected the environment. Evidence of shallow ecology in Buddhism. Can you find things where Buddhists say that the natural world is needed, but it doesn't seem to be needed for its own sake, it seems to be needed for the sake of human beings? Can you find any evidence of deep ecology in Buddhism that says actually Buddhism values the natural world for its own sake? Can you find any evidence of a lack of concern for the environment in Buddhism? Now look, we can do a couple of things here. I'm going to go through this evidence in this video and pick out some of the key things I think might be tricky, but I'm not going to spend ages doing it. It's going to be quite short. This is really a task that I want you guys to do, but you might want to watch the rest of the video just to see if it helps you in your note taking. If not, you might want to spin on with the video, do that task, and then just move to the end of the video, because at the end of the video it will tell you one more task that I want you to do when you finish this. So I'm going to go through the evidence now, but you can just pause and do it yourself. I would probably advise you to pause, go through the evidence yourself, and then listen back to the rest of the video to see if there's anything I can add. Okay, so when I say take notes, what I mean is like pick out the key ideas, perhaps the names of key individuals, and explain them in your notes and under these different categories. So here, let's just go through this evidence. In the Pali Canon, forests are seen for useful places for monks to meditate. These are the roots of trees, these empty places. Meditate, monks. So he tells them to meditate there. Planting fruit trees for human use is said to bring karmic merit. The Buddha is described as having avoided harm to seeds or plants. There are rules banning monks or nuns from harming trees and plants. So all of this stuff seems to suggest that Buddhism cares about the environment, but I would say in a shallow ecology kind of way. Because look, forests are useful, people can meditate there, they're peaceful places to meditate. Planting fruit trees for humans to eat the fruit of brings karmic merit, because fruit trees are good because they bring fruit to humans. So it's pro-environment, but nothing really deep about it. It's because the environment helps humans. In some parts of the Pali Canon, the wilderness and forest is seen as something linked with danger and evil. In one sutta, the Chakravarti Sihananda Sutta, maybe, an ideal world of the future is described as one in which jungles and forests have been cleared and replaced with towns and cities. These teachings need to be put in context. In India at the Buddha's time was still largely rural, and the forest would have been more dangerous and hard to live in than towns and cities. In a time when our current environmental problems would have been unimaginable, these attitudes are perhaps not surprising. So, look, there's some interesting points here. We could say this, I think, could go down in lack of concern about the environment in Buddhism. Seems to suggest that Buddha didn't care about the environment. Make sure you've got this in the Pali Canon. If you can put the name of the sutta down, that's excellent. Yes, it does seem to suggest that the Buddha wasn't interested in the environment. But, and it's probably worth saying here, if in your notes you can add some response points, that's really good too. But we can say, well, yes, the Buddha actually describes an ideal future as one in which you've got rid of all jungles and forests. But if you think about at the time of the Buddha, the idea that getting rid of jungles and forests would be devastating to the environment would be unheard of. No one knew about that stuff back then. And at the time, you know, there were so many jungles and forests that it didn't, you know, that kind of thing would seem not something on anyone's horizon that they'd get rid of all of them. So that probably just reflects the idea that jungles and forests were more difficult to live in than towns and cities, and it doesn't. I don't think it reflects an idea that Buddhism completely doesn't care about the environment. A key question in Buddhist environmentalism is the status of plants. For Buddhists, all animal life has value because of the teaching of rebirth. What about plants? While some religions of the Buddha's time, e.g. Jainism, taught that plants have souls and can be reborn, the earliest Buddhist texts do not teach this. An idea that plants can be reborn is explicitly denied in some later Buddhist texts. So that's some evidence of a lack of shallow ecology, we might say. The rules in the Pali Canon against monks destroying plants are explained as being due to complaints from lay people that monks were destroying one facultied life. This indicates that plants were seen by some at the Buddha's time as life forms with one sense, the sense of touch. While such a belief might suggest that plants are sentient beings that are of value in themselves, it is important to note that Buddha never endorses the view that plants are one faculty life. Rather, the ban seems to be the result of a desire not to offend the religious beliefs of others. So look, where would this go? Well, maybe under shallow ecology, or maybe this is actually a response point. Maybe we might put the third point down, third paragraph here down, as evidence for deep ecology. No, the Pali Canon says don't destroy plants because they are one facultied life. So that seems to suggest that plants are sentient life forms to some extent, and therefore they can be valued in their own right. However, the response to that seems to be more convincing. The Buddha never says they are one facultied life. He never says they're a form of sentient life. In fact, Buddhist texts say that plants aren't life that can be reborn like animals are. So it doesn't have the same ethical value. And it could be that they've used the idea that they are one faculty life. Seems to be to do with keeping up the image of the Sangha, not offending people who think that plants are a form of life to be respected. So yes, this all seems to suggest that Buddhism, while it might appear to have a feeling of deep ecology, it does not have that feeling. Number 4, in many East Asian forms of Buddhism we find the teaching that all of nature, including plants and rock, possesses the Buddha nature. This would seem to be a strong basis for argument that nature has intrinsic moral value. Ryoigin, I think that's how you pronounce it, I have no idea, a teacher in the Japanese Tendai school argued that plants are sentient beings and that their growth can be seen as progress towards enlightenment. However, this teaching has been criticised by other Japanese Buddhists for lacking any basis in Buddhist sutras. So yes, this is some evidence for deep ecology. The idea of, especially the idea of Buddha nature, being within all nature, could suggest that everything is of value and therefore we need to protect the environment for its own basis. But of course, easy to criticise because Buddha nature itself is a challenged doctrine. Some people think it goes against the original teachings of the Buddha, or is not there in the original teachings of the Buddha, at least in the form in which it exists in Zen and other East Asian forms of Buddhism. So there's lots of ways in which that can be challenged and turned into an interesting peril. Number 5, Damien Keown argues, based on his interpretation of the ethics found in Buddhist scriptures, I put argues twice there, argues that the natural world only has instrumental value in Buddhism. Good quote that you need to write down. The basis for ecological concern in Buddhism is to be found in the important role which the natural environment plays in sustaining karmic life. By karmic life, he means creatures that can create karmic merit and demerit, including animals and humans. Similarly, Ian Harris argues that unlike Christianity, in which the earth has intrinsic value as God's creation, within Buddhism, the natural world has no inherent meaning or value. Now, these are two interesting points. Especially Ian Harris's. In Christianity, there's clearly a basis for deep ecology on the basis that God created the world and therefore it has value as something created by God. God even says in the Bible, it is good when he creates it. However, in Buddhism, there is no concept of a creator, and therefore the idea there that the world belongs to some almighty being is not there. It seems to instead that it's got no inherent meaning or value. It only has value in that it provides a place for us to live. So all that evidence of shallow ecology it should be. Okay, this I think is an interesting one. Bhikkhu Bodhi, an American Theravada monk, sees the current environmental problems faced by the world as a product of an ignorant attitude towards what brings human beings happiness. He refers to He says this: we are now coming to recognise that the project of gaining mastery over nature springs from a number of assumptions specific to Western industrial society, that happiness and well-being lie in the satisfaction of our material needs and sensual desires, that the basic orientation of humankind to nature is one of conflict and struggle aimed at subjugation, that nature must be conquered and made subservient to the satisfaction of our desires. We can also see that these assumptions are fallacious ones, which, if not challenged and replaced soon, may well have great grave consequences for humanity. Here, Bodhi focuses on the idea that environmental problems are a byproduct of fundamentally anti-Buddhist understanding of how we should live our life. From this perspective, while Buddhism may not value the environment for its intrinsic worth, a Buddhist attitude towards happiness would certainly bring benefits to the environment. So look, this is all very interesting, right? Bhikkhu Bodhi promotes Buddhism as an environmentally friendly religion, but he doesn't really give an argument for shallow or deep ecology here, I don't think. I mean, the best place I could put this in your notes is under shallow ecology. Certainly, his argument isn't based on deep ecology. What he really is saying here is that the problems with the environment are to do with people not being satisfied with what they have. People want more and more stuff, and therefore they damage the environment by, trying to get everything that they want, and therefore, basically he's having a go at consumer society, and consumer society producing too much stuff to satisfy all our desires, and therefore the world becoming destroyed in the process. Now, what he's saying is not that, he's not actually saying anything about whether harming the environment is good or bad. What he's saying is, if we want to protect the environment, we should live more like Buddhists. He's saying Buddhists don't crave after things, and they naturally live a life, or they should, if they're proper Buddhists, naturally live a life which doesn't harm the environment because they're not craving after more and more material possessions. However, the key thing here is that he's saying Buddhism is environmentally friendly. He's not saying Buddhism gives us a reason to be environmentally friendly. He's just saying it's a kind of byproduct of the way of life that Buddhists are supposed to live. 7. Many Buddhist environmentalists today use the teaching of the jewel net of Indra from the Avatamsaka Sutra, a famous Mahayana text. The text describes an infinitely big net with a jewel placed in each knot. Each jewel reflects every other jewel in the net, creating an infinite amount of reflections. This image is used to describe the way in which things in the universe are interconnected. Because all things are caused by something else, conditioned arising, ultimately all things are connected, and damage to one thing in the universe will cause harm to everything else. The sutra says every living being and every minute thing is significant, since even the tiniest thing contains the whole mystery. From this point of view, we must protect the planet because we rely on the environment as much as it relies on us. So look, this is an interesting one. I mean, definitely it provides some evidence for shallow ecology. This is the idea of interconnectedness, right? Buddhism, in many forms of Buddhism, you have this idea, especially Mahayana, that everything is interconnected. Everything is linked in the universe. So this would be the idea that we've got to protect the environment because we're linked to the environment. We are connected. We rely on the environment, and it relies on us. But even more, some people would take it to go even worse than that, deeper than that, and say, well, that interconnection just shows that on a deep level, we shouldn't be thinking about them and us. The whole of the universe is interconnected, and on some level we could go beyond thinking the environment is of worth because it helps us, more to thinking, well, we shouldn't make a big distinction between ourselves and the environment. We're all part of one interconnected whole. So this might provide evidence of deep ecology and shallow ecology, and it depends on how you interpret it. Okay, here's a couple of stuff for how Buddhists have worked to protect the environment. In Northern Thailand, there are severe problems with deforestation, and monks have worked to tackle this issue. Some monks have even ordained trees into the Sangha. The idea is that since harming monks is seen as a terrible thing to do, ordaining trees may stop them from being cut down. One of the monks most involved in environmental work is Ajahn Pongsak Tejadamo. He said, nature is a manifestation of the truth and of the teachings. When we destroy nature, we destroy truth and the teachings. Now, key things here. One is, that's a good example. They ordain of what they do. So Buddhists there are some examples of Buddhists working really hard to protect the environment, and that's a good example to pick out. Ordaining trees. In Buddhism, it's seen as a particularly bad sin to kill a monk, bringing lots of karmic demerit. So the idea was if they can make these trees into monks, make people think they're monks, then people won't cut them down. The other thing to say is, I don't know what this quote means, and I don't really think that it makes sense from a Buddhist point of view. Nature is a manifestation of the truth and the teachings. When we destroy nature, we destroy truth and the teachings. I mean, you could link it with the idea of Buddha nature, but there's a problem here, because Ajahn Pongsak Tejadama, like all Thai monks, is a Theravada monk, not a Zen monk, and so he shouldn't really be thinking about that doctrine of Buddha nature. So I would say it's interesting that they do that. he seems to give, like, when he says nature was a manifestation of the truth in the teachings, that almost makes it seem like some kind of deep ecology. But it doesn't seem quite clear what that means. It doesn't quite make sense, that idea, that quote. It doesn't really seem to have a root in any deep Buddhist teachings. Last one. One Earth Sangha. This group is a network of Western Buddhists from different traditions, including secular Buddhists, who work for a more responsible attitude towards the care of the environment. While the network is worldwide, members meet in local groups called eco-sanghas to practice meditation together and organise activities. The activities in the network range from education and training about environmental problems, developing environmentally sustainable ways of living, and protesting against specific examples of environmental destruction. So just an example for your how have Buddhists worked? Yeah, the One Earth Sangha, and coming together in groups called eco-sanghas around the world. They're a group that brings Buddhists together to care about the environment and protest about damage to the environment and so on. That is all of your evidence. I hope that all made sense. This is your last task. I want you to read the Buddhist Declaration on Climate Change. This is an article I put up on Teams for you. This is a statement about climate change agreed upon by a group of Buddhist leaders, including the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh, two people we've looked at before. All I want you to do is, when you read it, explain the actions they recommend Buddhists should take, what kind of things do they think we should do, explain the reasons they give for wanting to fight climate change, why do they think it's a good idea to fight climate change, and do their reasons make them seem like examples of shallow ecology or deep ecology? What kind of ecology do they seem to stress in that article? Okay, I hope that all makes sense. I think next time we'll probably come back to this topic again and think about how to put this stuff into an essay structure. Okay, thank you.